This is the click mount, a smarter and stronger way to attach accessories to your Skadis board. And while the design may look elegantly simple, it is only because of the many prototypes and design failures we haven't seen yet. The journey started when we first discovered the Skadis board on our trip to IKEA in 2021. We thought it looked really nice, so we decided to buy a couple, along with some official accessories, but soon after, we realized we're gonna need some more hooks. There was only one problem. IKEA is quite a far drive away, and each hook is about $1. So with our newly purchased 3D printer, we had the idea, why not just 3D print them ourselves? The 3D printed ones came out amazing, worked just as well as the metal ones, and were a fraction of the cost. Replicating the IKEA hook was easy, but what about things that can't be hung from a hook? I needed a shelf, and I needed to design a shelf that could hold some weight and not jostle around. There is a design in the woodworking industry called a dovetail. It works great because it only allows motion in one direction. In order to optimize for strength, I had to slice it in half so the hook could lay flat. The dovetail seemed like the perfect solution, but I quickly ran into an issue. Elephant's foot was ruining the print by causing a burr, resulting in the connection being too tight or not even starting at all. I didn't realize it then, but my inexperience was getting in the way of a solid design. We'll talk about that later though. One thing I don't like about the original Skadis hook is that it takes up 2 slots. On another trip to IKEA, I noticed they had a new twisting hook that you could just twist into place. I tried this design but ran into some issues. 1, the hook would just fall into the board, and 2, the elephant's foot was now on top, stopping any chance for the hook to work at all. I put a lot of design work into the next version of this. I elevated the dovetail, I made it so the hook wouldn't fall into the board, and most importantly, it wouldn't break when you twisted it into the slot. But just because something looks really cool doesn't mean it's gonna work. The first layer area was so small, it printed so unreliably, I just had to scrap the design. Then one day I was browsing some 3D printed designs and I came across a wall-mounted planter by Lofted Goods. So I copied the design, moving the dovetail to the accessory and putting the slot on the hook. This fixed the burr issue, but made the hook much bigger and required it to be printed vertically, which brought along the need for supports, a poor surface finish, and weaker layer lines. 3 designs in, and I was nowhere near a working design. Meanwhile, my dad got tired of waiting and decided to come up with his own solution. Instead of messing with dovetails and fancy geometry, he simply made a square peg that fit into a square hole. It was working so well, he soon began making holders for pens, business cards, and pill bottles. I have to admit, he beat me to market in our own house. But the more I studied his designs, the more I noticed the trade-offs. There was a lot of wasted space against the board where the hook holds up the accessories, and there's nothing holding them in place. They can easily get bumped upwards and get loose. So while his design was good enough, I still wanted something better. And all it took was looking at my failures from a different perspective. Even though I felt like conceding to my dad, I kept playing with my old designs whenever I'd walk past the board. One day, I realized that the most recent design I abandoned actually fit together perfectly. So I checked my CAD only to find out that I'd already deleted the dimensions I used. The only dimensions I still had were for the half dovetail, so I had no choice but to revisit my original design. Years ago, I had no idea how to deal with elephant's foot, but now I've started using Orca Slicer, which can compensate for that. So I put the half dovetail in the middle of the rounded hook and printed the first prototype for the new version. And after all the struggles so far, why did I think it was going to be so simple this time around? This version had new problems, and they were big problems. The walls weren't staying a circle. The walls were separating from each other, and the biggest one, the print would get loose on the print bed around layer 10. My first thought was that this was due to the rounded design. I came across a hook by This Is 3D Printed on Instagram where they used more of a rectangular looking design. I used that as inspiration, made the hook more squared off so each line would be printed nicer, and gave it a nice chamfer on the edges. This solved the wall separating issue, but it was still failing around that 10th layer. I tried everything, changing the print speed, the infill percentage, the wall order, and none of it worked. I eventually found the fix turned out to be the cooling fans. They must have been too strong, that it was cooling the part too fast, causing it to lose adhesion to the print bed. I changed the fans to ramp up after several layers, and finally, after many failed prints, I had my first successful print of the click mount. I tested the fit on a Skadis board, and the gentle press fit keeps the mount tight, but the accessories could still slide up and down on the mount. The solution to this is a locking pin that creates just enough resistance to keep a shelf from moving around. Compared to my dad's design, the extra time and effort shows. The click mount is stronger, more stable, and looks like a professional product. But a mount itself isn't useful. I needed an accessory, and my spare Joy-Cons cluttering up my desk became the perfect test. This all comes full circle to the start of this journey. My design requirement for a shelf to be locked in place is exactly the same as for a Nintendo Switch Joy-Con display. It needs to stay still while you're pulling the Joy-Cons out to be used. So I designed the model to be thin and print flat, allowing the fine layer lines to create a T-slot for the controllers to sit in. I ran into issues with part warping and dimensions being too tight, this Joy-Con taking the brunt of it and losing some paint, but I persevered and eventually had a successful print of my Joy-Con display. A month later, Bamboo Lab had their P1S on sale. I bought one. It has great print quality, and parts big or small, nothing popped off the bed during my initial prints. This allowed me to redesign the Joy-Con display without worrying about warping. The controllers are seated closer together, and it now holds the wrist straps. The Joy-Con holder is sleek, functional, and a perfect way to prove the click mount's capabilities. I designed a few more accessories for the launch video. First was a cold shoe mount for my microphone whenever I'm not using it. The other is a simple tray inspired by Jonas' FDM print on MakerWorld. What started as me trying to make a simple shelf turned into a lesson of patience, problem solving, and perseverance. This isn't just another hook, it's the solution I wish existed many years ago. Throughout this project, I didn't just create a mount, I leveled up my mindset. Every failure from elephant's foot to bed adhesion taught me to change my perspectives from problems to challenges. And seeing the final design in my hands reminds me why I can never give up. I designed the click mount to solve my problems, but I believe the design will also help others around the world. If you want to experience it for yourself, the model is available for free from shoptusher.com, MakerWorld, and Things. From a $1 hook to an entirely new system for Skadis, this is the click mount, and I can't wait to see it on your boards. If you want to help shape its future, let me know what accessory I should design next.